Sunday morning TV is a place of amazingly diverse programming. On the one hand, there are different church services. On the other hand, there are shows where political pundits step into the arena of public discourse and battle with the weaponry of words. Shows like ABC's This Week or CBS's Face the Nation or NBC's Meet the Press or Fox News Sunday dominate Sunday mornings. These pundits come out swinging, slicing and dicing, shredding and stabbing those across the aisle with pointed words. That combativeness has been poisonous for the common good and further polarized political processes in the U.S. Sharp words on public airwaves have done a public disservice. Cooperation with the so-called enemy is seen as treasonous. It's a winner-take-all world where party unity comes first and bipartisanship is a quaint relic of the past. We've come a long way since Mo Udall, the Arizona congressman, uttered these words as his politician's prayer. Lord, grant me the wisdom to utter gracious and generous remarks today, for tomorrow I may have to eat them. That prayer seems far removed from today's rancorous debates, which have spilled over into our own lives. The leaders of our civil society, whether politicians, pundits, or TV producers, may not be the cause of civility's deterioration in our society, but they're certainly a contributing factor. When such leaders weaponize social media platforms like Twitter to attack others, we all lose. We watch as TV guests verbally slug it out with one another and figure it's okay to shoot off our mouth at others. Somebody swerves into our lane without signaling, give them an earful. Check out clerk having trouble with the order ahead of us, let her know we're unhappy. Don't like a posting from a Facebook friend? Flame them. Extra crispy, those trolls. If we've got a problem with somebody, open up both barrels on them. After all, that's what they do on TV and DC. Our public discourse has been coarsened, and verbally combative TV shows simply throw fuel on the fire. Unfortunately, it's more heat than light. Can we imagine Chris Matthews on his Hardball show booking both Ann Coulter and Jane Fonda as guests? How many viewers would pay to see that confrontation? Oh, baby, the sparks would fly. Now imagine further that Chris introduces them and Jane begins. Chris, in the green room, Ann and I started talking. And Ann continues, and we found out we have more in common than we realized. Jane, you brought up some excellent points. And Jane continues, as did you, Ann. And we've both decided to reconsider our positions in light of our conversation. Ann would say, Jane, can I buy you a cup of coffee? I'd like to continue talking with you, as they unplugged lapel mics and left the studio. Matthew's jaw, as every other viewer's, would hit the floor. I know, never in a million years. But we can dream, can't we? Sunday morning TV programming offers a wide variety of choices, from grace-filled TV ministries to shrill verbal jousting across the aisle. Given the volubility and volatility of words hurled in our national airwaves, online, and in personal spaces, isn't there another way? Aren't we tired of the blowhards in both camps shouting past one another in order to score points? Aren't we tired of being sucked in ourselves to a game where everyone loses? There has got to be a better way, one that enhances communication instead of increasing dissension. We find it in our passage today from Proverbs. The book of Proverbs, like Ecclesiastes and Job, belongs to what's called wisdom literature, a particular genre within the Hebrew Scriptures. It's not based on God's revelation like the Ten Commandments, but rather based on human observations of the natural world, accumulated over centuries. It is wisdom that has borne the test of time, proven across different cultures and eras. Although part of God's book, Proverbs arose from millennia of men and women watching the way the world worked. They paid attention and passed on their gift to us in this collection of sayings. It's to these sayings we'll now turn to find a better way than word warfare. In this life, we're going to have misunderstandings. Given the complexity of our relationships, there are bound to be communication breakdowns. It's impossible to go through life without offending someone, even accidentally. Although not everyone communicates in the same way, many of us operate with that assumption. That assumption makes simple misunderstandings morph into confrontations. At some point in our lives, someone's going to speak angrily to us, and our first quote tells us we can choose how to react. Our first instinct when someone throws angry words at us is to return fire. What does Proverbs say? A harsh word stirs up anger. When we shoot our mouth off, it not only injures others, but ricochets back upon us. Harsh words simply escalate the conflict because we've been hurt. In retaliation, we reach for the words that we know will cut them to the core. And the conflict gets stirred up, hotter and more cruel. Small misunderstandings can become conflagrations when we choose to respond with harsh words. A high school teacher was having a bad day. The AC wasn't working, the class was restless, and progress was slow. In the back of the class were 3 girls whispering, writing notes, and being particularly inattentive. They paid no mind, even when she gave them one of her patented stern glances. Exasperated, it was on the tip of her tongue to say, "I'd suggest you leave class until you can manage to pay attention and not disturb others." But something in one of the girls' expressions stopped her. Class finished and the teacher started collecting her materials. She looked up and saw the 3 girls were at her desk, and one said, "We're sorry for not paying attention in class, but Margaret just got a phone call before we came in. Our best friend, Lisa, died this morning of leukemia." The teacher shuddered to think how her own harsh words could have made a bad situation worse. Harsh words that stir up anger aren't our only choice, however. Going back to the same verse, we hear, "A soft answer turns away wrath." 2 things should be noticed. First, that an answer should be given. The injured person shouldn't simply remain silent. Second, the answer should be gentle and conciliatory. A soft answer isn't a weak answer, nor does it compromise the truth. It may be firm in substance, but soft in language, spirit, and tone. It's impossible to resent it, but yet equally impossible to answer it. Sometimes it's more important to be loving than to be right. We may not gain our own way, but will deflect anger and perhaps regain the ear of our antagonist. If we don't exacerbate the situation, but give a soft answer in reply to another's anger, they'll move elsewhere. Their anger will die out from lack of fuel, or they could be won over by our graciousness. It's nobler to win by kindness than to crush by cruelty. Misunderstandings are bound to happen in life, and people will come at us in anger. We have a choice in how we react, with harsh words or soft answers. We can choose either to throw gas on the fire or water. When we turn to the second verse of our reading, we hear more wisdom about speech. It tells us what kind of tongue we need to have and what type of tongue we should avoid. Let's look at the latter first. Perverseness in the tongue breaks the spirit. A perverse tongue can break the spirit, not only when it's directed at ourselves, "Oh, I'm such an idiot, how could I be so stupid?" but especially when it's directed at others. One lash of the tongue wounds at least two, oftentimes many more, the speaker, the wounded, and anyone else in earshot. The saying is true: there's nothing better than a good tongue, and nothing worse than an evil one. A perverse tongue speaks words of bitter vinegar, words that break the spirit. Such words are more hurtful than those spoken in anger because ill will is added. Rage may thunder, but bitterness stabs with the venom of malice on the blade. Such perverse words are meant not only to wound, but to poison as well. We're not to have a perverse tongue, nor a silent tongue, because silence in the face of evil isn't good, nor a smooth tongue, for it may be smooth on the surface, but cherished venom lies underneath, nor a noisy tongue, for it may labor much for little purpose, nor a sharp tongue, because instruments that are keen-edged are for the purpose of wounding. Not even just a true tongue, for truth isn't enough. It must be seasoned with grace, what Paul calls speaking the truth in love. What's needed is a gentle tongue, one that is a tree of life. Our tongue is to be a tree of life, an image resonant throughout Scripture and found on the walls of our mural. A Southern Baptist minister boarded a plane and sat down. Presently, a disheveled and inebriated man weaved his way down the aisle and sat down beside him, promptly dozing off, until the flight attendant with the beverage cart asked, "Would you like anything to drink?" At which the man woke up and said, "I'll take a Bloody Mary, and one here for my friend." The Baptist minister politely smiled, and the man then noticed he was reading the Bible. In a moment of clarity, he said to the minister, "You must think I'm a horrible person." And the minister replied, "No, I think you're a man who's very generous with his friends." Those unexpected kind words turned an alcoholic's life towards sobriety and the Lord. When the tongue makes known the health that Christ brings, it gives life in the highest and most important sense. When we share the gospel message with others, we're fulfilling the tongue's highest calling. It's important to think before we speak, for our tongue can either break the spirit of others or be a tree of life to others. It's up to us. Let's look at the last bit of wisdom from our reading today. With patience, a ruler may be persuaded, and a soft tongue can break bones. The strongest blacksmith will find a piece of cold iron too much for them, But when they place it on the coals and patiently wait until it glows, they can persuade it to take another shape. Through patience, even the iron will of rulers can be persuaded when brute force itself would fail. Patience is stronger than intimidation with others, especially with those in positions of authority. People can't be threatened into compliance with our wishes, but they can be overcome with patient kindness. We saw that clearly in the struggle for civil rights in the 1950s and 60s. Because of that movement's persuasive patience and actions, the cold steel of segregation and Jim Crow bent before the prophetic fire of justice, and those in authority were persuaded to take a different and shape a different course of action and future for our country. Patience persuaded a nation to radically alter its course in race relations. But it wasn't simply the patience of civil rights members that moved America. It was their willingness to suffer and die nonviolently that changed the minds of those in power. Their long-suffering patience softened hearts so that Dr. King could speak with a soft tongue and be heard. Had such patience and persistence not first been shown, it's unlikely Dr. King would have been granted an audience. And with the attention of the nation focused on him, his gentle words were now listened to and had their full weight. He spoke, and with a soft tongue broke bones of oppression, stereotypes, and persuaded America to do the right thing. Patience can be persuasive, especially when coupled with strong convictions from a soft tongue. In our current socio-political climate, how do we be gentle with our words? We must recognize that caricatures hide the character of others underneath them. Caricatures exaggerate the other's features. If we're seeing others as caricatures and speaking with them as such, it's a sure bet they're not seeing our character, but only a caricature of us. If our mirror shows a realistic portrait of us and an exaggerated caricature of others, not only is our vision distorted, but our words will be warped as well. If we're seeing others who differ from us as less than children of God, worthy of love and respect, it's reflected in our words of neglect. Others have valuable insights I cannot see. If we believe this, then our attitudes, actions, and words will follow suit. This is part of humility, recognizing our perspective is limited and we need the other's insights. Our angry words won't surface their valuable insights, but our gentle words can. James 1:19-20 says, "You must understand this, my beloved. Let everyone be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. For your anger does not produce God's righteousness." Stephen Covey says, "Most people don't listen with the intent to understand. They listen with the intent to reply, or in today's world, to refute. Anger prevents us from hearing others. If our intent is to refute, we won't use gentle words. We need to be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to anger before gentle words have a chance of being spoken. There is power in our words. They live on in the memory of our hearers. It's our responsibility to exercise this power wisely, so our words are gentle, grace-filled, and of God. Gentle tongues and soft answers may not seem like much, but through them, God spoke the living word, who is Jesus. When his words become our words, and his voice speaks through our lips, we become trees of life, whose words continue to change the world. Thanks be to God for the living word. Amen.